going. So, chair in position. Right, just rubbing your hands together. And then tapping over your face. And then over your head and neck. Keep going. I think I need to just arrange things. That's better. Down towards your neck and then go onto your shoulders. Your arm. The other side. Off your chest. Belly. Good. Sitting back and let the weight drop down. Just feel how your body sort of settles in. And just a reminder about the breathing. I think it was this class or one of the classes did that exercise. You start with placing your hands on your belly. Just feeling the gentle rise and fall below your hands. And this is something to build up over a period of time. It's not something that you can just do and then it's done. You want to get used to the feeling of movement, the area between navel and hips. After a while, check out the solar plexus just below your ribs. Feel a little bit more movement there usually. And then again, when you've done that a little, lower one hand back down, and you want to feel the movement in the lower hand just a little bit before. And it feels a bit contrived when you do it like this. It feels like you're sort of manipulating the breath, which to a degree you are. So, but what you're doing is you're just trying to put into your muscle memory this action, so that when you come to other postures and other situations, there's a kind of reference point there. And sometimes, you know, you might put your hands on your sides and feel a little bit of movement there as well. So this is all done with your back being supported, the weight being supported by the chair. But when you come in to the upright position, obviously you're still supported by the chair, but the support for your back will come from below. And that's a little bit trickier, and it's part of this getting used to really feeling the feet, feeling your hips, feeling that sense of the lower part of your body, allowing the weight to drop and become a little bit denser. So it's sometimes said that your upper body will sit on your hips, and that's quite a useful image, I think. It's not something you would want to stay with long term, because I think we can go too far with this division between upper and lower body. But this idea, you know, your shoulders, your ribs, your head, and so on and so forth, can drop down in the way that you would drop your whole body down into a chair. So you may find that you have a memory of that bellows breathing, that abdominal breathing. But it can be quite difficult. If you find that you start to get short of breath, then forget about it. Just let your body go back to how it would normally breathe. And that little exercise we just did with the hand on the belly and so on is something just to come back to on a regular basis, and you'll gradually find that it begins to work work better for you. Turning your head a little. Another thing about using your breathing, your body has a sense of releasing as you breathe out. So when you hit a barrier, so for instance, as you turn here and you just start to feel that slight stiffening, sometimes when you breathe out, you get a little bit more space there. It's not something that you force at all. You just breathe out. If the space is there, you can move into it, which means that you would breathe in as you face the front. Or what you can do, you can turn, you can feel that barrier building up. Just rest there, take a breath in, and then as you breathe out, that's when, again, you would see the space. Okay, and then shoulders. Same thing here, same thing with any of the movements, really. You can use the breath. Once you're aware of it, some people like to imagine that they're breathing in to the blockage and breathing out to release. And that's a way of guiding your attention into that area. So the releasing isn't just about your out breath, but about the sort of intent to release, to untangle the tension and the tightness, and then going forwards. And then take your hands down to your sides, winding. And circling around. Excuse me. And back the other way. Now, as you sit there, another image that we use, and again, I may have mentioned this last time, is this idea of imagining you can breathe up through your legs and breathe out through your legs. So a sense of sort of drawing up through your legs. So then you tilt forwards, and you could try, as you push back, also breathing in and have that sense of breathing up through your legs, which obviously biologically is impossible. But again, this is about using your breath as well as the movements to really direct your attention into different parts of your body. So again, it's not something that you would necessarily feel that you need to keep a breathing pattern for. Try it a couple of times. And it can help you to really feel how your legs are working to support and to move your upper body. So if you've ever watched a bouncy castle being erected, they lay them flat out on the ground and it's just this flat sheet of plastic. They start to pump the air into it and it comes up. And those bits and pieces start sticking up. And in a way, this is an expansive movement, so it would more naturally associated with your in-breath. And it's the same thing. It's as though your body's filling up with something and being pushed upwards and outwards. And turn a little. And then in the other direction. And then going around. Still in the back of your mind, that idea that your upper body is supported, is sitting on your lower body. And that helps to guide how far you're moving. Obviously, if I'm out here, I'm kind of falling off my seat, as it were. Back the other way. Come back to the center. Pull one, feel up, step out. And I've talked before about this idea of pushing your foot into the floor. And again, one of the things you can do, it just slows you down a little bit. You put your foot there, and you can imagine breathing in, breathing out, and then bringing your foot back. So much of this art is about just giving yourself time to notice. What does it feel like to have your foot on the floor? The leg extended a little bit. How does that affect your hip and your back and so on and so forth? And then on the other side, . and to your sides. And then palm forwards, and then bird folds your wings. Remember, you're not trying to move your arms forwards or backwards. What's happening is your arms are hanging from your shoulders, and your shoulders are the ones moving forwards and backwards. And of course, we've got the legs and everything else involved in all of this. So all your arms have to do is this rotational movement. And this is something that works all the way through the different movements that we do, that the movement is produced one way or another through your whole body engaging with whatever's going on, either by being directly involved in the movement or offering support to your body, the whole body, while other bits are in movement. You have all these internal movements we become aware of. So there's a build-up of energy, and we use our arms to create a shape for that, create a pattern for that energy to flow through. And then fisherman cast the net. So this, of course, is where an awareness of what movements we're doing is a particular advantage, because the shape comes from your intent, from your mind. And if you're familiar with the exercise, obviously that's going to be much easier to create that shape. One more time. And then rolling the ball in. Next time we're going to change. The pigeon spreads its wings. One more time, going back, but then just letting your hands drop down and pushing a wave. Once more. And as you come back this time, curling your fingers in very softly. Punch with both fists. And then going back to pigeon spreads its wings, doing one of each. So pushing away. Good. Again. So now turning your hands out as you open your fingers. Last time. Circling back. Bring the hands together, turn them palm down. Just going circling forward, but this time with the angling of your body. Polishing the table. Back the other way. Careful of overextending. You don't want to strain your back or your shoulders. Do one more on each side. Turn your hands palm up again, and this time push up, feeling gain that expansion upwards through the back, and then contracting. Body expanding and filling, contracting and emptying. So again, filling and emptying, you may find it appropriate to do this with your breathing, but don't force your breath into a particular pace. You may find there's you notice that my elbows are going out. That's exaggerated, but that helps to open up your chest a little bit. It's even more true when we get to the wild goose. So again, that's something that we would just quite normally associate with a breath in. Now change into the wild goose. And now, one more time. Letting your hands drop down. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. So if you think about it, I talked about the breath coming up through your belly, into your chest, maybe even using your imagination, the breath coming up through your foot. That's actually how all the movements should work. Whether we're seated or we're standing, whether there's an obvious and clear movement in your legs pushing you up or transferring your weight or something like that. The internal dynamic always has a starting point of some kind in the feet and in that connection to the ground. So when we talk, occasionally use the word grounding in Tai Chi, there's a very literal sense to that. Once more. And then changing. Again, notice, at some point, just take a breath in and notice the sharpness, the clear quality in your in-breath compared to your out-breath. This is the contrast that I've used the image of spring mist, autumn fog for. The in-breath is the spring mist, sharp and clear. The out-breath is the autumn fog, just that little bit more murky. Term sometimes used is stagnant, and I think it's a very appropriate term. Feel stagnant sometimes, you don't want to move. Yeah, I think it's too much trouble. And gradually go through a process of rejuvenation. This time we're going to add in the turning movements as you push out. Whether or not you're doing this with the breathing pattern, you can still recognize what's happening in your upper body, still recognize the connection downwards into your feet. Again, the 4 stages. 1 is the push up. 2 and 3 are the push out with the turn, once to either side, remembering to come back. 4 is the same movement in your arms, just sideways push, but no turning in your center. One more time. Doing little sequences like this is a good way to really train the waywardness of your attention. I'm not suggesting that we should be tunnel vision, but we want to try and hold a particular action, a particular image, whatever, even while other parts of our awareness are monitoring the environment and whatever we're out there. 1 foot forwards. Scooping the sea and looking at the sky. This time, we're going to change to grasping the tiger's ears. Again, a hollow, loose fist, swinging upwards as you tilt forwards. So your back lengthens, and it feels like your arms are a sort of extension of that lengthening. So then the same 2 movements with your other foot extended, the other leg extended. So go carefully with scooping the sea, looking at the sky. There is a bit of a stretch here, probably the closest we come to any kind of full stretch. And you may notice that you may try, have this idea that you want to get down a little bit further each time or every now and then, but don't force it. And then grasping the tiger's ears, using your right foot to push down with a little bit, this foot that's flat on the ground, feeling the hips taking up that push and the momentum moving up your spine and into your arms. And once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder and your arm. The other side. Onto the chest. Belly. And finally your legs. Good. So standing. Now, this is an exercise you can do in the chair as well, but it's easier to see what I'm doing when I'm standing. I'm going to exaggerate the movements in my hips to begin with. So first of all, just side to side, and with a little kind of turning movement. You see, sinking in my hips a little bit, and you can see my arm moving. And I let it just hang from my shoulder, and as much as possible, letting the fingers just describe a circle. The arm's feeling quite heavy, and you can play about with the speed. Think about what's happening on one side and then another. Also aware of your back and your sides. So it's a mixture of the physical movement, but also your intent. You know, you can have the image of the circle there. I sometimes imagine I've got a long pencil in my hand and I'm just trying to draw a circle on the floor. That probably accounts for why this always feels much better to me in my left hand than in my right hand, because I'm actually left-handed. So if I'm imagining drawing, that would always be with my left hand. It just feels smoother, and it feels like a better circle with my left hand. If you go a little bit faster, you get a slightly different effect. There's a danger if you go too fast, you just disconnect. So you go a little bit faster just to see how fast you can go before things disconnect. Now about here, I haven't really got. Well, there is a bit of a circle, but it's not so obvious. And the movement comes from here. But you can feel all sorts of responses in your back and your sides, as long as you're not standing with your knees stiff. I mentioned the idea of stagnation earlier, and these sort of shaking movements are movements that we can use to release that stagnation. And then just come to a halt. That's thinking that. So the term stagnation is used in Chinese medicine to describe a certain quality. I think it's a good term for that quality, you know, when I've got a book somewhere of these some descriptions of these exercises, but in the introduction, they talk about this idea of stagnation. And they use the phrase that a moving river doesn't stagnate. And that's an interesting idea to put in with these movements, that just the sheer act of doing any kind of movement, any kind of exercise, especially when it's something like Tai Chi, Qigong, and our minds are engaged and so on and so forth. We're using good posture, nice smooth movement. Gradually just releasing that feeling that we can get sometimes of being a little bit kind of stuck. And again, it's something, it's an idea we can apply on a, if you like, a macro level, a whole body and mind, or we can use it to again think about trying to release those blocks and those areas that feel a bit tight and unresponsive. So your breathing may be part of that, because of that freshness of the in-breath. Now change into the wild goose. And then part in the clouds. Now go back to the first of these and do them in a little sequence. Just notice what's happening within your body. So when we do this, we tend to feel the expansion quite clearly here, in the whole body, but very focused on the belly. As we start the wild goose, same thing, but it moves up. As the arms go out, we can feel that opening across the chest. And then the expansion, belly, chest, and finally up the upper part of the chest and into your arms and your head. Following the same line of movement as you're breathing, expanded in the belly and then in the solar plexus and so on. And moving through three regions of the body. Belly is sometimes referred to as the lower dantian. The solar plexus is the middle dantian. Head is the upper dantian. Dantian means field of energy, or if you like, energy center, or energy sea, whatever. And when we put these three movements together, the exercise is called harmonizing the three dantians. And they seem to get less dense. Remember, they're kind of like when I talk about the legs having that denser feeling, obviously that's going to that's going to sort of change as we take our attention up through our body, becoming more expansive and more fluid and so on and so forth. So we feel that sort of change going up through the body, but in a very harmonious way. It's not at all abrupt, nor are they disconnected. It's a gradual evolution. Somebody once described it as like the transition from ice in the lower dantian to water in the middle dantian, and to steam in the upper dantian. The Chinese terms, amongst other terms, are for the Jing in the belly, the lower dantian. Confusingly a little bit, but it's contextual. Qi in the middle dantian, and what's referred to as the Shen in the upper dantian. Jing in the lower dantian representing your sort of constitutional energy, that which you're born with. And then into the middle dantian, it's just the everyday. I mean, the air you breathe in, the food that you eat, and so on and so forth. And the Shen is the spirit, as it's described. That sense of, yeah, your spirit, your mind, and so on and so forth. Let's do one more round. And shake out. In a slightly different context, those three areas are referred to as the triple heaters. In Chinese medicine, it's regarded as an organ. And its function is to do with what they refer to as the homeostatic balance through the body. The body's constantly adjusting chemically, physically, in terms of electrical, bioelectric impulses, temperature. Those things working all the time to maintain the inner environment that we want. And the triple heater mechanism in Chinese medicine is the one that makes that happen, that sort of drives that function. And so that fits with the idea of a harmonization of different regions of the body. Now, have 1 foot forwards. transferring your weight 60% into your front leg, 70 into your back leg when you go back. Don't get too bogged down in terms like qi and danqian. A lot of them are very contextual, which I mean, depending on how it's being used, the meaning can subtly change. And there's many words that we use in English in that sense. So when I use the term qi, for instance, in relation to the solar plexus, that's a very particular understanding of the term. It can also be used to represent much more than that and different elements. So, and also these terms, some of them are quite old. The term qi is probably 2,000 years old or more. So its meaning has evolved and changed through time, just as language does. Begin to raise your toes and your heel. So don't get fixed on these things. As I sometimes say to people, you know, if you try to read Chaucer or even Shakespeare, some words sound odd, and you know, the language can be quite different because it's changed in the intervening period. Doesn't mean that one way of looking at it is necessarily more correct than another. It just means that we have to understand the context of it and then stepping in. After all, we don't all go around talking like characters from a Shakespearean play, and yet that doesn't mean that Shakespeare is either wrong or irrelevant to us. So, and it's the same thing. So I try and avoid getting too sort of stuck and rigid about the terminology that we've inherited with these arts. I think it's, you know, it's good to try and understand it, but it can be quite a minefield. And then on the other side. You need to raise your toes and your heel. Stepping in. And then by taking a few steps, full steps. And go back the other way. And bring it down. Okay, so fisherman cast the net. Have a sense of just reaching out a little bit into the space around you. And then change over. And okay, go back to your chairs. So the spring mist autumn fog image can be used on its own as a visualization, and you can combine it with just simple body scan or with the breathing or something like that. But we can also use it as I've been doing with certain exercises. So just starting off very simply, imagine holding the ball between your arms, and every now and then just combine your breathing, but don't feel you have to do it every time. So just take a breath in, feel the ball expanding and contract. So the in breath has that fresher spring mist quality, the out breath, the autumn fog. Make it a bigger movement, make it a full circle. So you feel as though your whole body's filling up. And remember, our feet and our legs can be part of this. There's a little push down through the feet, or you can imagine taking the breath in through your feet. The idea being that there's the energy is all around you, and one way or another, I suppose in a sense, creating space for it to come into your body. But then from here, your attention turns inwards. You do a smaller circle. Feel what's happening belly and back and chest and sides and so on. Which is the exercise sun and moon. 2 stages. First, we refer to as gathering in. And then the second, we just try and imagine that fresher quality spreading through the whole of the body. So we can go through different areas of the body, starting with feet and legs. Just imagine here, you're able to sort of breathe into those areas almost and send that fresher quality there. You imagine the fresher quality. Next time, coming up the body, so belly, lower back. Interspersed each time with just a bigger movement to get that sense of filling again. And then feeling the movement, the expansion, the pressure quality, solar plexus and chest. Shoulders, and arms, hands and fingers. And finally, then your head and face. Just do a couple of rounds either focusing on particular parts of the body, if that's what you feel is appropriate, or else just feeling, like with the breath, the expansion all the way through your body. And the release. One more time. And then let your hands drop down and embrace tiger, return to mountain. When we're interpreting the idea of the return to the mountain, is everything seeming to flow into that area of the lower Dantian. In this sense, we would include our legs and our feet really as part of that whole area. So don't get, as I said, don't get too stuck on sort of like what these terms mean in physical terms. They're conceptual as much as anything else. One more round. And rest. And open the eyes. Lovely. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you.